since I'm new to YouTube and you guys are still getting to know me, it's only fair that you get to know all parts of me. Hey guys, it's Amy and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a well-requested video and I will be talking to you guys about my cancer story. So for those of you who don't know and are still new to this channel, I am a cancer survivor. More specifically, I had leukemia, which is a cancer found in the blood, and my type of leukemia was acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Yeah, tongue twister. Before I get started, I would like to say a couple things. So guys, a lot of my friends and family and subscribers who don't primarily speak English are asking about whether or not I will do videos in Spanish. So this next couple sentences will be in Spanish, so if you don't understand, I will try to provide subtitles, but I'm still working things out, so I might not. But this is for people who speak Spanish. Yo quiero hablar de por qué yo no estoy hablando español en mis videos. Yo entiendo que muchos de ustedes no pueden entenderme y estoy tratando de buscar subtítulos para que ustedes me entiendan, pero yo no estoy hablando español porque yo estoy más cómodo hablando inglés. Yo entiendo mi español no es lo mejor, pero yo estoy tratando y a veces puedo hablar español, pero con las cosas que yo estoy más cómodo hablando inglés, lo voy a hablar en inglés. Gracias por tu apoyo y espero que entiendas. The next thing I want to say before I start my video is that everyone's cancer experience, or pretty much everyone's experiences, are different. So my cancer experience may be different from someone you know who had cancer or anyone else who had cancer in any of your lives. So my experiences is in no way the same experience as someone else's, especially if it's different treatment and different kinds of cancer. I am just trying to put myself out there and give you guys my story to either give hopes for anyone of you who are watching and actually have cancer or any illness like that, or just so you guys can understand cancer or my type of cancer and my experiences a little more. So I am done with the little introductions. Let's get this video started. The first thing I'm gonna talk about is what led up to my diagnosis, because everybody has that little thing that tells them something's wrong. So when I got diagnosed, or better yet, a little before I got diagnosed, I was a freshman in a private high school. I will not say which one, but I was a couple months into school and I was on the cross country team. I was very athletic before all this happened. So in cross country, we'd be running, let's say 2 miles a day, like every single day. So I have asthma, so obviously cross country isn't the best, but I did enjoy running, and we'd be practicing every day. And I mean like every day after school. So a couple weeks into cross country, I would come home and I'd started feeling really tired and I had abdominal pain and I just wasn't in the mood for anything. I'd come home and go to sleep. If I hadn't done my homework already, I'd just go to sleep. And my mom thought that was weird, but at the same time, she knew that I knew my body, and if I thought it was okay, then it was okay, right? Well, clearly that wasn't the case. So after a couple weeks of this, we just assumed that it was me being tired from running. After a couple weeks of this, on literally a Sunday, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a Sunday morning and I woke up crying because my abdominal pain was so bad. And if y'all know me, well, knew me back then, I'd cry, but I would never cry because of pain. So if I was crying because of pain, the pain was really bad. So when my mom saw this, she's like, okay, you know what? We're taking you to the hospital. And they took me to the hospital, ran a couple tests, and they realized that my stomach or my abdomen was inflamed, something along those lines. So it was pretty much that it was inflamed and that was what causing the pain. But because when I was in the hospital, they ran a couple blood tests, they realized that my white blood count was really low. And this was weird, obviously, because why would my white blood count be low? I was as healthy as an ox, or however that saying goes. So when this happened, they're like, you know what? We're gonna keep you monitored for the next couple days and make sure that you get better. So for the next couple days after school, I would go to the clinic near my house and they would take blood tests, make sure that my blood was getting better or at least staying the same. But every single day, the tests were coming back lower and lower and lower and lower. Not fun. Being sticked a couple times a day, every day for around 2 weeks is definitely not fun, especially because I had a fear of needles back then. Yeah. So after about 2 weeks of this going on and my blood just getting lower and lower no matter what we tried, they decided to tell my mom to take me to a blood doctor in Boston. And if you guys know Boston, Boston is great with medical things, like the hospitals and all that. They're amazing in Boston. So about a week later, I went to Boston and the doctor explained that there could be many reasonings to why my blood was going so low. And they decided to perform a procedure, and the procedure was a bone marrow procedure, which is where they put me to sleep and stick a needle in my back or something like that and take a piece of my spine's bone, if that makes sense. Because if you know science, your bone has cells in it and they create blood cells and all that. So that was pretty much what was going on. All I remember was me being really bummed because the day that I had my procedure was the day that I had a really big history test, and that was literally all I was focused on, which was very weird because why would I be focused on a history test? Anyway, the procedure day come, and I remember my mom, my grandmother, and my aunt Johnny went with me to Boston because my mom didn't really like driving on highways. So my aunt drove us and they put me to sleep. I was in the children's hospital, so you know, they were amazing doctors. And it turns out the day that I got my procedure done was October 30th. So all the doctors were dressed up for Halloween and it was crazy. Especially when I came out of the procedure and I was still really high off of anesthesia. I was just there thinking like, why is Batman my doctor? And why am I being wheeled out by Catwoman and an angel? I was like loopy, guys. When I tell you I was loopy, I was loopy. I forgot I was bilingual, guys. When I found out I was bilingual, I literally screamed of joy. Like, I was off it. So then the doctors came back after I calmed down and all that, and they said that the test results would come back in around 6 days, so that I should just go home and not have anything to worry about. The drive from my hometown to Boston is around an hour to 2 hours with traffic, so obviously we had some time on the road. And literally, I kid you not, 15 minutes after we left, my mom gets a call and she starts hysterically crying. Like, I mean, hysterically crying. If she was driving, thank God that she wasn't driving that day. If she was driving, we probably would have gotten in a car crash. So she was just crying and screaming and all that. And I was in the back seat like, what is going on? So my aunt takes the phone and she talks to the doctor, and she's calm because, you know, my mom is just going off it. And she talks to the doctor and she's like, okay, and she hangs up. So obviously I'm wondering what's going on, and I ask her, Titi, what's going on? And she says, oh, well, the test came back a little blurry because you were dehydrated. And I'm just like, okay. I was 14, guys. Obviously, I'm not gonna question a test, like, especially if it's a doctor's test. So then she tried to get my mind off of it, which I found very weird. She was just asking me a bunch of questions like, oh, what do you like? And, you know, what's your favorite color? Because you're gonna have to stay in the hospital for a couple days. And I just want to bring you like some things to keep you occupied. And I'm just like, okay. So we get home and my family's there. And I had a really good friend at the time. Like, he was my best friend. We're still friends, guys. Don't worry about that. We're still friends. We're just not as close. But my mom told me to tell him to come over and say goodbye because I'd be going to the hospital for a couple days, which I did. So I called him and he was on his way over. And when I got home, everybody was just silent. Like, they were acting so weird because in my house, it was my brother, my sister was at softball practice, my stepdad, and then my aunt, uncle, and my cousins. And when I got home, you can literally hear a pin drop. It was that quiet. So my stepdad and my mom tell me, you know what, we're gonna go to church and we're gonna go pray. And I'm just like, okay, because we have a very religious family. Not like really, really religious, but like, you know, a good amount of religious to like the point that we go to church every week. But besides the point, we go to church and we pray, and then we come home and my friend is there. He knows who he is. I'm not gonna say his name, but my friend is there, and the first thing I noticed is that his eyes are red, like his eyes were watery and red. And I'm just like, are you okay? And he's just like, yeah, I'm fine. So we just hang out on the couch and talk and all that. And then my family, except for like my little brother, my family go into my room. And at this point, my sister is home, which I found very weird because she's usually at softball practice until a certain time. So I knew that she was home early, which again, I find very weird. But me being 14, I just didn't think much of it. But clearly there was something going on. So they come out of the room and they're just like, oh, we gotta get you ready. You gotta pack your clothes, da 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 da. And all that happens. I pack my stuff and I packed like pillows and some stuffed animals because again, I was 14. Like, yeah. And I went to Boston. My aunt drove me. My mom went, obviously, because I was a minor and I had to stay with her at the hospital. And when I got to Boston, they take my vitals and everything, and they put me in a room. So in the room, it was a children's hospital, guys. In the room, there was so many little goodies. So they gave me like this little, it's a mini drawer for jewelry, and I just started painting it because I'm very artsy. Like, I'm very artsy, so I like painting and drawing and stuff. So they gave me these things, and then I was just going to town. Then the doctor, well, one of the doctors that did my procedure came into the room, and she gave my mom a hug and said, and I quote, "I am so sorry you're going through this." And I overheard that, and I'm just like, huh? So then she gives my mom a hug, they go outside to talk, and obviously at this point, I'm finally catching on to things. So I start replaying everything that the doctor told me could be wrong with me and my blood in my head, and one thing sticks out to me. One of the many options he told me was it could be cancer, and that just sticks out to me. So me being a curious kid, my aunt was still in the room, and I'm just like, Titi, do I have cancer? Just like that. And she's just like, no, baby, why would you think that? Like, and I'm just like, oh, no reason. It was just one of the things the doctor said. Like, it stuck out in my mind. She's like, no, you're dehydrated, da 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 da. Obviously, that wasn't the case. She just said that because she wasn't trying to worry me, which I understand now, but at the time, I'm just like, okay. So they come back into the room, and the doctor is just like, oh, we have something to tell you. And at this point, I'm on the phone with that friend of mine, a good friend of mine, my best friend. And I'm on the phone with him, and I have headphones on. So he could probably listen, but like no one's hearing him. And the doctor comes out, looks at me like so seriously, and she's like, you have cancer. And I'm just like, okay, guys, I kid you not, I cried for 10 seconds. It's literally 10 seconds. You can ask anyone who was there, my mom, my aunt, anyone. I cried for 10 seconds, which was very weird. I didn't know if it was a defense mechanism or whatever, but I cried for 10 seconds, and then I literally said, It's okay, I got this. What kind of 14-year-old? Like, I'm proud of myself, you know? But my aunt was literally like, you're not gonna cry anymore? I'm like, no, I got this, it's fine. After they all went outside, my aunt, my mom, and the doctor went outside to talk about treatment options and all that, I was still on the phone with my friend, and I remember I asked him, did you know? And he said yes, that my sister told him when he got to my house while I was still at church, and he promised my sister that he wouldn't tell me until I found out from the doctor. Yeah. So after that, they wheeled me up to my room, and it was a really nice room. It was a children's hospital, so like obviously they want to make the kids feel welcome. They had a PlayStation up in there. They had a room dedicated to arts and crafts. It was a really nice room. Obviously, I was kind of bummed I'd have to stay for a couple days there, right? Wrong. I had to stay for a whole month. A month, guys, a month. So my mom knew that I had to stay for a month, and then they told me when I got up there that I had to stay for a month. And the only thing that I was focused on was if I was gonna lose my hair. So at the time, I didn't really have that much knowledge on cancer, and I assumed that it was the cancer that actually made you lose your hair, but it turns out that it's the treatment that makes you lose your hair. I had a lot of hair. Like, this is all my hair. Like, I had, let's say, take away this part, I had all that hair. And it wasn't as curly as it is now. It had a lot of heat damage, so it was just wavy. But I was pretty bummed that I was gonna lose my hair. But they said that it wouldn't start immediately. It'd just start when like the treatment was gonna get used to my body and all that. The reason I had to stay a whole month in the hospital was because that was the first phase of my treatment. I was receiving chemotherapy, and that first phase of chemotherapy was very strong, so they had to monitor me. So when I first got up there, they had an IV in my arm, which I actually still have the scar. I don't know if you can see it, but like I have this is from the IV. And it was like really thick, but it was only in my arm for 2 days because they had to put something called a port in my chest. So I had to have a separate surgery. Yay! So the surgery of the port, it pretty much connects a vein from the port to my heart, and it helps the chemo pump through my heart and distribute around my body, because obviously the cancer was in my blood, so it had to be distributed. So the first thing I noticed at the hospital in that month that I stayed at the hospital was that there were kids on my floor with really crazy haircuts, and I loved it. I mean, little kids with purple hair and like little green mohawks and all that, I loved it. So I asked my doctor, well, I asked my nurse why the little kids were running around with little cool haircuts. I'm like, does everyone do that? Is that like a tradition? And they're like, and she told me, no, it's actually a decision they make before they lose their hair, before their hair is affected by the chemo. There's a little period of time before your hair is affected by the chemo where you can just do whatever to your hair before you lose it. So that's what I did. I'm going to insert a picture here, but pretty much this was like 2016. This was 2016, and if y'all know 2016 Demi Lovato, that was me. I shaved half my head and cut my hair up to here, and it was great. I felt like a badass, honestly. So luckily I had a barber for I have a barber for a stepdad and a salon stylist for an aunt. So my aunt Marilyn and my stepdad Papo, they came to the hospital, shaved half my head, cut my hair, and straightened it. It was great. It was great. But sadly that didn't last a week. It barely lasted a week, because I remember I was watching TV with my mother in the hospital room, and I ran my hand through my head and a clump of hair fell out. And that's when it hit me that I was actually sick. So I started bawling my eyes out, as one should. And literally the next day, my stepdad came and shaved my head. because he knew that I would not be able to make it and just watch all my hair fall out on its own. So when they shaved my head, all my aunts, all my siblings and my cousins and my best friend was there, and they were bawling their eyes out with me, guys. Like, it was like that monumental moment that showed that I was sick. I'm gonna insert another picture here. I was a whole potato. That was literally what my nickname was for like a year. I was a potato. I'd call myself potato. And yeah, the month in the hospital was exactly how you'd expect. Not fun. I was away from school, away from home, and while my family did visit very often, a couple times a week pretty much, I really missed home. So I refused to eat any of the hospital food. And that was like, now looking back at it, that was really wrong of me, because Boston Children's Hospital has really good food. My mom went to town on that food. Meanwhile, I was just so homesick that I wouldn't eat anything that wasn't from home. So my Uncle Junior and Aunt Ruth, they had to come see me every day just to bring me what my grandma would cook. Because I wouldn't eat regardless if it wasn't that case. Like, I wouldn't eat anything. So after that month and I went home and all that, I fell into a really bad depression. I knew that I said that I was strong and that I was going to kick cancer's butt, which I did, thank you very much. But it was just really hard being at home and not being able to do anything except for drink some medicine and lay down and sleep. I didn't want to eat, and one of the medicines that I was on, called steroids, not those type of steroids, but steroids, they would make me lose my appetite. So along with that and the depression, I refused to eat to the point that I lost a lot of weight. I believe it got to the point that I was 80 pounds. I will insert a picture here of how skinny I was, but it was bad, guys. Like, it was really bad. And because of it, I had to have a feeding tube inserted, which, if you don't know what a feeding tube is, it's a tube that connects to a machine that where you get the Ensure. You guys know what Ensure is, right? It's like those milks that like pretty much is a whole meal. I'd get that filtered into a tube that would go up my nose, down my throat, into my stomach, because I would not eat. So I would be fed that way while I slept. And besides that, which I had to get in feeding tube in twice because it happened again after I got it removed the first time. Besides that, my depression and my anxiety were at an all-time high. I was sharing a room with my sister at the time because she was a senior in high school and she hadn't gone off to college yet. And I remember how one specific night I woke up crying and screaming, why would God do this to me? Like, I was so, like, I felt so bad. Like, she had to call my parents into my room to try to calm me down because I was just bawling my eyes out, wondering why this was happening to me. But the thing is, things happen for a reason. And while it did happen to me, it ended up making me stronger. So I thank God every single day that I was able to get healthy and go through this. And if I was able to go back in time and decide not to go through it, I wouldn't change a thing. In reality, it made me a stronger person and made me who I am today. So yeah, that was the first month in the hospital. Now comes the hard part, school. So I was out of school for so long. If you guys had gone to a private school, you know private schools are very strict with attendance. I was out of school for so long that they flunked me. The old principal that was in term when I was at school, she was amazing. She tried so many things for me. But private schools don't have to give tutoring. It's not mandatory for them to give tutoring. So even with my special case, the board and all that didn't give me tutoring, which is why I fell so behind. I wasn't allowed to do school in the hospital because I had no tutor. And because I had no tutor, I flunked the year. So I was out of school for a year because I just wasn't strong enough to go back to school unless a tutor would come to my house. So I was out of school for a year and I was literally just sitting at home forever. So in that year out of school, I turned 15 that summer, and while I wasn't planning on having a quince originally, my parents decided it was a good time to celebrate my life. So I did have a quince. It was really small, and I would insert pictures here. I looked like a blue cupcake, guys. I mean, I looked like a blue cupcake. But yeah, it was really small. I only had around 50 people because since I was still on treatment, I wasn't really allowed to be around a lot of people because my immune system was really bad. But it was really fun. Like, I got to see people that I haven't seen in a long time. And it was like a point in my treatment that I just realized, wow, people really do care about me, and I have such a great support system that I should really put myself in the type of mentality that shows that I want to get better and not just sit in my room and cry about how I'm sick and focus on that. Instead, I should be focusing on how I will get better eventually. And it turns out a couple months later after my quince, that October, the doctors decided, hey, you seem to be doing pretty well. You're being able to stand up and walk around on your own. Do you want to go back to school? So obviously I said yes in a heartbeat. And that October I got enrolled in a public school because, as y'all know, I wasn't able to receive tutoring in my private school, so they just transferred me to the public school in my city. And luckily I had a couple friends already there. While I was a grade behind, I did know a couple of the kids in my middle school that were a grade before me, and they were able to help me get back into school and get back into the flow of things. So my school was really great and understood my situation, and they helped me create a 504 plan, which is a special accommodations plan that pretty much got me to be able to wear hats in schools, because if y'all know, hats aren't allowed in public schools as like a safety thing. And it got me to be able to miss as much school as I needed. Not as I wanted, as I needed, because with my immune system, I'd get sick easily, and sometimes I just feel really weak from the chemo. So no matter my absences, it wouldn't really impact whether I passed the grade or not. And yeah, it was actually really fun going back into school. My freshman year, I took a dance class where I made a bunch of the friends that I have now, and it was great. It made me feel normal again. At that point in my life, treatment was a little more spaced out. Pretty much for a good chunk of my treatment would be me going to the hospital, getting treatment through my port that one day, and that treatment would like last in my system for like a week. And during that week, I'd also have drinkable chemo, which it came in pills, and I'd drink my chemo. And then after that, I'd take a break and then restart it. And then that'd be like a whole month. So it'd be like 3 weeks out of the month, I'd be taking chemo, whether it was through my port or drinkable. And then a week, my body would take a break to, resolve from that chemo. And it was pretty much my routine for a really long time. I was on treatment for about 2 years and a month, so that was my routine for a pretty big chunk of treatment. And yeah, I did get some side effects though, because when, like I mentioned earlier, I did lose a lot of weight in the beginning of my treatment due to depression and just me not wanting to eat. So when I did gain weight, I obviously got some stretch marks, and that great steroid that I had to drink made those stretch marks very exaggerated. So to this day, I still have stretch marks all over my body. I actually have some on my arms, on my legs, on my chest, on my back, everywhere. And it really sucked. And it still sucks. Like sometimes like I mentioned in my last video, I had a bunch of confidence issues with starting this channel because I didn't really feel confident starting this channel during my treatment, and then I didn't really feel confident for a while after because of all these stretch marks and just me trying to grow back my hair, which miraculously grew back really fast. I've only been off treatment for almost 3 years, so, and my hair started growing back about a year into treatment. So I mean, God is great. But yeah, I ended treatment around middle towards end of my sophomore year, and to this day I still have some side effects like my anxiety, which I still struggle with to this day. It has gotten worse in the last year and a half or so, so I do have to be on some anxiety medication. And then my depression is still ongoing, but it comes and goes, you know, good days, bad days. And then I also do, well, I learned about this recently, but it turns out my anxiety kind of plays into some PTSD that I have, because obviously cancer was very traumatic for me, and there are just some things that I'm still not used to. Like, for example, before the pandemic, I could not stand the smell of hand sanitizer because it gave me nausea, because it just reminded me of how sick I was. Thanks to the pandemic though, since I have to use hand sanitizer so frequently and don't always have scented hand sanitizer on deck, I kind of got better with that. But then again, there are still little moments that remind me of who I used to be and what I used to go through. Like when I wash my hair and detangle my hair, I see clumps of hair fall out, and it pretty much just send me into a trance to when my hair fell out, or whether or not I could still do certain things like, you know, sports and all that. I'm still trying to get back into the swing of things with exercise and all that, but sports I am still kind of holding off from until I get stronger physically and mentally. Because before all this, cross country, track, and cheerleading were my jam. But after that, I wasn't able to do it for a very long time, and I still haven't been able to. I tried cross country around my sophomore or junior year, I don't recall. I believe it was my junior year. I tried to do track, but that only lasted a couple weeks because I realized that my body wasn't able to handle it still. And then also I do shake. Like, my hand doesn't really stay still that often because it was just something that the pills made me feel. And the doctors do say that it will get better with time, but you know, I'm still recovering, and I thank God and the doctors and my family for all the support that they have given me every single day. And while I am still going along with this journey and I am still going on with all this, I hope that my story inspires people out there who are going through what I went through, or something remotely the same, or whether it's just, you know, helping inspire you guys to always believe in yourself and always put your health first, guys. Like, it took me forever to learn about it, but like, put your health first, please. Like, school and all that could wait. Education is important, but it will always be there. Sports will always be there. Always put your health first, whether it is mentally or physically. Always put your health first. and know that there are people out there that will always support you. I mean, before I got sick, my relationship with my siblings were normal relationships, like sibling relationships. We'd fight and all that, and so at some point in my life, or sometimes I just feel like, dang, do these guys even like me? But after that, I realized how strong our relationship really got. I mean, guys, my sister used to go to school in Boston. She went to college in Boston for about a year and then transferred to a community college here because I was still sick and because she still wanted to watch over me. My brother, who was 8 at the time of me getting sick, would call my mom while I was in the hospital, while he was in school, just to make sure I was okay. I mean, if you haven't done it, tell your parents, tell your siblings, tell your friends how much you appreciate them and how much you support them, because they are going to be there for so many difficult places in your life. And sometimes I feel like people don't really acknowledge that. Thank you guys for listening to my story. And if you guys have any more questions, please comment down below. I know this video was kind of long, but I only touched on some of the basics from my experience, not literally every single detail. So please just comment down below for any other questions you guys may have and any other video idea concepts, because this video was very requested and I would love to hear any more ideas you guys have for any future videos, because like I said before, I am here to entertain you guys. So thank you for watching my video, and remember to be kind and spread love in the world. Peace.